Hello everyone and welcome back to Monsters of the Past. As always, I'm your host Mr.G, and today we're here in the early Jurassic to talk about one of the first big carnivorous dinosaurs. It's the one and only Dilophosaurus. Dilophosaurus means two-crested lizard, and it was a member of the Dilophosaur family. It was a carnivore and it lived during the early Jurassic in the USA, more specifically Arizona. Dilophosaurus was 23 feet long, which may not seem that big compared to some of the other theropods we've talked about, but for the time it lived in, that was massive for a carnivore. When Dilophosaurus was first discovered in 1942, it was classified as a species of Megalosaurus, which is a fate that unfortunately befell a lot of theropods during the junior years of paleontology. But in 1964, another skeleton was found showing that it had crests, and thus it was made its own genus. Dilophosaurus was a very early theropod, and it basically marked the point where theropods started diversifying and increasing in size and shape and all those other things. For the longest time, there were debates over what its hunting methods were, with some theories being that it was a fish eater or a scavenger or that it was a secondary predator. However, in 2021, new research has caused most paleontologists to agree that Dilophosaurus was most likely the apex predator of its region, and it would have been a very fast and agile hunter capable of taking down things equal in size to it. The most notable thing about Dilophosaurus, however, is the crests adorning its head. Considering these crests would have been way too weak to have been used for fighting, most paleontologists think that they were probably used for some sort of display and might have been brightly colored, similar to the crests on a lot of modern birds. One last thing to note is that it's a common paleo meme to give Dilophosaurus feathers, despite the fact that unlike raptors, there is no direct or indirect evidence of feathering. The closest we have are what could potentially be feather marks found on a butt print of a Dilophosaur fossil. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's look at the card. The coloration they gave this thing kind of reminds me of candy. I don't know what it is about it, but it just reminds me of hard candy like Jolly Ranchers. It's weird, I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, this card is semi-accurate. Some errors include the fact that it claims it was found in China, but those were determined to have belonged to a different genus and are no longer considered Dilophosaurus. As I said earlier, it might have been feathered, but that's a pretty strong might, so I'm not sure if I should hold that against this card or not. And the biggest mistake on this card is that it claims it was a member of the Ceratosaura family, which it was not. Ceratosaurus and Dilophosaurus were in completely different families, and they were not related to each other that much besides both being non-coelosaurian theropods. But at least this card does mention the fact that the frill and venom seen in Jurassic Park are just myths. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get to that in a second. Overall, I give this card a 7 out of 10. Alright, now let's look at Dilophosaurus' appearances in pop culture. In Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park novel, Dilophosaurus are creatures featured in the park. In this book, they are described as having a venomous saliva and are mostly there as commentary on how fossils cannot show us everything about a dinosaur, and there's only so much we could know about them. In the movie, they went a step further and not only shrunk it down, but gave it a frill, something that there is literally no fossil evidence for whatsoever. And unlike the venom, this is something that would have most likely been preserved, but there is no evidence of it whatsoever. And unfortunately, this portrayal of Dilophosaurus has created sort of a snowball effect when it comes to dinosaur depictions, as ever since then, nearly every non-documentary appearance of Dilophosaurus has been based off how it appeared in Jurassic Park. Although they didn't appear in the film itself, Dilophosaurus appeared in the video game adaptation of Ice Age 3, where they're based on the Jurassic Park appearance. They appear in the Disney Junior show Gigantosaurus, where it legitimately makes my eyes want to bleed, since not only does it have a frill, but for some reason they put the crests on its nose. This thing legitimately disturbs me. They appear as a summonable object in the video game Scribblenauts, where thankfully they don't have a frill, but they still spit venom. And finally, Dilophosaurus is a tameable animal in the game Ark Survival Evolved, where once again they're based on the Jurassic Park appearance. Here's a challenge for you all. Try to find a non-documentary work that portrays Dilophosaurus without a frill or venom. I dare you to find me one, because so far all the non-documentary ones I could find are clearly based off the Jurassic Park version. That's all for this episode of Monsters of the Past. Join me next time when I talk about the sailed back proto-mammal. Bye!